This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gido Ewart. It's Tuesday, December 24th. This is Africa 54. The inescapable effects of global warming are jeopardizing livelihoods in Africa. Angola's foreign minister discusses the controversies surrounding his administration's repatriation of Democratic Republic of Congo refugees. And Kenyan safari doctors risk being harmed by Al-Shabaab militants to provide remote health care. Tonight, we begin with the unpredictability and dramatic change in global weather and climate patterns, including in Africa. As the Earth heats up, the continent felt the effects of those changes in 2019, experiencing cyclones, droughts, and unstoppable rains that jeopardized livelihoods. While Ombuo has the details.
62-year-old David Kemboi sorts out dry maize stalk on his 21-hectare farm in Kenya's Trans Nzoia County. He turns the stalks of what could have been a bountiful harvest into silage for feeding his 15 herd of cattle. He says the heavy rains that have rocked different parts of Eastern Africa caused a disappointing crop.
At the time of growing crops, we expected an optimum yield, like we had invested heavily in all the crops that we grew. But unfortunately, we were not able to get a good harvest out of all that, which means a lot of money was just thrown into the docks. And we didn't get anything out of that. And we do not expect to get anything elsewhere other than from this land. And because we depend on rain-fed agriculture.
Millions of people have been displaced as a result of widespread flooding this year across large parts of Somalia, Kenya, Uganda, South Sudan and Ethiopia. The floods have led to hundreds of deaths. In November, South Sudan declared a state of emergency in 27 affected areas, with close to 1 million people affected. The Kenya Meteorological Department attributes the rain to an irregularity known as Indian Ocean Dipole, an oscillation of surface temperature of the sea, which brings weather extremes to countries neighboring the Indian Ocean. Bernard Chanzu is the Deputy Director of Kenya's Meteorological Services. He says nearly all of Kenya has received above average rainfall this year.
In some stations, I can quote like Meru stations, we have seen records which are showing that what has been received is more than 200% of the long-term average. That is what is usually received in the area.
With levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere climbing to new heights, Dr. John Recha, a scientist specializing in climate and agriculture research, says Africans can expect more extremes in years to come.
We will therefore have more effects of climate change affecting the weather patterns, specifically the rainfall patterns. The climate change will be more intense, and therefore the climate variability that is having these extreme events and of the drought and the floods will be more frequent and even more intense going into the future. So that means it will affect different sectors in different ways, right from the health sector, agriculture,
energy. The solution for Kemboi and other farmers, according to experts like Recha, lies in adapting to climate change. That, he says, would require help from governments and agencies to implement new agricultural practices such as alternative irrigation methods and efficient water storage for farmers. Rai Lombor for VOA News, Trans Nzoia, Kenya.
The State Department has withdrawn the U.S. ambassador to Zambia after he strongly criticized the Southern Africa country for jailing a gay couple for having sex. Zambian President Edgar Lungu says he no longer wants to work with the ambassador Daniel Foot And the State Department says his job is no longer tenable because of the president's view. Zambia has not commented on food recall. In West Africa, former Ivory Coast rebel leader and candidate in next year's presidential election, Guillaume Soro, due to return home on Monday, diverted his flight to Ghana after the country issued a warrant of arrest. Soro boarded the plane in Paris and was headed home for the first time since May. According to his advisor, Soro's private flight was diverted to neighboring Ghana for security reasons. The move against Soro, who retains the loyalty of many former rebel commanders who now hold senior positions in the army, could significantly increase tensions ahead of an October 2020 election that is seen as a test of Ivory Coast's stability. About 3,000 people died in a brief civil war in Ivory Coast that followed the victory of President Alassane Ouattara in a 2010 election. Zimbabweans are heading into the Christmas holiday facing one of its worst economies in years. Columbus Mavunga reports from Harare.
Zimbabwe's Christmas shoppers are doing their best to be merry despite the struggling economy. But with the economy stuck in a deep slump and high inflation eating into savings and earnings of every Zimbabwean, festivity like fuel and electricity is in short supply.
2019 festive season, I think, is just one of the most difficult seasons that I've ever experienced. If you look at the prices of the basic commodities, they are so out of reach for many of us. We can afford to buy this, of course, because we are people who are earning something. But just imagine for those who are not going out to work and are not getting anything at the end of the month. It actually means they have no Christmas to celebrate about.
At a Catholic church outside of Harare, Father Fidelis Mukonori presides over the last Mass before Christmas. Church members give their wishes for this festive season. Almost all are about the economy and hunger ravaging Zimbabwe. Mukonori says the country is experiencing its worst Christmas in decades as the poor get poorer.
The festive mood is lukewarm. Go inside the shop and look at the issues. Many things have no price. Those which are given the prices are changed every day. That is not a life to live of a people.
Zimbabwe authorities say they are doing their best to improve the economy and the holiday for the majority Christian nation.
We know we've gone through very difficult times as a nation, but government has been working very flat out to make sure that we put safety nets, especially for our poorest. We've seen actually prices of milli coming down. We've seen government doing everything possible to make sure that at least our people can have a good Christmas. What government wants is to see their people happy, and government is leaving no stone unturned.
But with 60% of the population food insecure and over 5 million receiving food aid, according to the United Nations, it will be hard for many in Zimbabwe to have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Harare.
The Angolan foreign minister, in part 2 of his interview with VOA's Peter Clote, addresses concerns about the way his administration handled the repatriation of Democratic Republic of Congo refugees. Manuel Domingos Augusto also underscored the importance of the diplomatic relations between the administrations in Luanda and Kinshasa.
Talk to me about how Angola handled the DRC refugees. Some suggest that the government was too slow to react in the transportation of the refugees back to DRC. And what is the relationship between Luanda and Kinshasa?
The relationship between Luanda and Kinshasa very good, for not to say excellent. As I say, as a result of the elections in DRC, there is a relatively political stability in DRC, and that helps. But the relations have been always good in the last time. We are working with DRC government and the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. And so far, many refugees have went back, they did went, but some of them, they want to stay in Angola. And we are trying to integrate them with the productive activities. So there is no crisis anyway.
A lot of African Americans or Africans in the diaspora are celebrating 400 years of slavery. Is there government in Angola celebrating this, and what policies or measures is the government implementing to celebrate this? Because in other countries, for example, in Ghana, they have the Year of Return where you have a lot of people going and business opportunities, investment. What is Angola doing about this issue? Because Angolan slaves were here in the U.S. as well.
Not only Angolan slaves have been here, but the first African slaves were from Angola. That must be crystal clear, and that's why I'm here now, today. Based on the say that better late than never, we are here now to start our journey on recognizing the sacrifice of our ancestors. We are here this evening to celebrate these 400 years of the arrival of the first 20 African slaves, which happened to be Angolans, according to all the research done. And this tragic past must be inspirational for the new generations, but also to underline that Angola gave its contribution for this great country, which is the United States of America. And the decision of my government is that from this year, we will make regular, every year, a celebration on this journey of our ancestors to the Americas, not only to the United States of America, but all this area of the Americas, including the Caribbean countries.
Looking at the security issues on the continent, what role do you think Angola can play in terms of exporting its peace and stability that other African countries can learn from the Angolan experience to ensure peace and stability on the continent?
We think that the peace in Angola was not achieved only by the Angolans. We had help of many countries, namely our African countries, and Angola thinks that it's time to give back. We took it, but we must give back, and we're trying to do so. We are, for instance, now involved on trying to bring sister countries like Rwanda and Uganda together. I just came from another round of talks between delegations of two countries. So that's the way Angola wants to do it, and not claiming any price for it. I think it's our duty to share with other African countries, and if need for other countries and other continents, because we defend that peace and stability are fundamental for the well-being of the humankind.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was VOA's Peter Clotty speaking with Angola's Foreign Minister, Manuel Domingos Augusto. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, braving Al-Shabaab to provide health care to a remote Kenyan community. We'll be back.
More than just sitting here and talking about women's issues, it's about listening to them
and bringing their opinions to the table and making sure their voices are heard.
Because our lived experiences, our stories, and our voices will help shape the next generation.
high, high, high. You just high, high, high. Nina ukani luka buseni, ngachimwe okapena ni malaria.
Let me love it when you come my way. Money baba when you walk away. I wanna make you my woman. I don't wanna waste no time. I say hola, my mama. You know I'm wanting you. I say hola, big mama. Can I be the one for you? Tell me where did you come from?
Zambia.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. The ancient art of traditional healing in South Africa is getting a 21st century overhaul. Some healers are using social media and smartphones to treat patients remotely. There are over 350,000 traditional healers in the country, according to the Traditional Healers Organization, compared with just 46,000 medical doctors, according to the Health Professions Council of South Africa. Traditional healers interact with ancestors to solve problems, be they illness, finance, family, or other issues. Next up, in a short online video, Hebe Pangjai, or Fatty from Hebei Province, as the 34-year-old is known on Twitter, pops open a beer and drinks it all in seconds. Hebe Pangjai's real name is Lu Shishao. The odd-job laborer hails from a nondescript village where everyone knows everyone. Thanks to the internet, Lu now has over 130,000 followers on Twitter, drawn to his beer-drinking clips, with some of the braver fans mimicking his stunts. At the peak of his fame on the Chinese internet, he had more than 400,000 Kaishu followers. Lu also made brick-breaking and cooking videos, which are also viewed by tens of thousands. And finally, on display at a robot exhibition in Tokyo, Kawasaki says existing humanoid robots are generally not robust enough to operate in a rough, dirty, and unpredictable disaster zone. But Kaleido proved its powerful arms can lift humans and heavy objects at a time of an emergency. The company hopes the robot can contribute to Japan, a country often hit by natural disasters such as earthquakes and typhoons. And that's what's trending today.
Now, the Christmas spirit in composing the old and the new is alive in historic Williamsburg, Virginia. The colonial town dates back to the 1600s, while nearby Busch Gardens Amusement Park opened in the 1970s. Here's VOA's Deborah Block.
Christmas came in with a bang in colonial Williamsburg, where a fife and drum corps brought in the holiday spirit. And at nearby Busch Gardens Christmastown, an eye-popping light show illuminates a German village. During the holiday season, the theme park turns into a winter wonderland, decorated with 11 million lights, making it one of the largest Christmas displays in North America. This mother and daughter say Christmastown is magical.
Everything's lit up and festive and bright and just makes you happy.
It's really nice and fun, and there's a lot of things to do. Go on the train and look at the lights, and the lights are really pretty.
This visitor enjoys Christmastown's recreated European villages.
Experiencing the different cultures, even though it's not you're not there, you feel like you're there. The different architecture and the food too.
Here in this Irish pub, visitors are getting a dark beer called Stout. And in this old German village, the sweet smell of gingerbread brings people into a cookie shop. Colonial Williamsburg also feels like another place and time. Williamsburg became the capital of the Virginia colony in 1699. Some 18th century buildings have been restored, while others were reconstructed on their original foundation. Today, the town is a living historic museum.
Have a Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you as well, my friends.
Christmas in colonial Williamsburg was much simpler than it is today.
Christmas was more a celebration of going to church and feasting, parties, dances. They would tuck holly sprigs in the window panes or some evergreen.
In 1842, Williamsburg became the first town in the American colonies to have a decorated Christmas tree.
Small tabletop tree decorated with gilded walnuts and balls surrounded by red gauze and lit with candles.
Today, this Christmas tree in the Folk Art Museum contains 2,000 handmade ornaments inspired by pieces in the collection.
I see this. It's up, all the way up there.
This object is traced from a piece in the collection that was cut by a woman who was born without any arms, and she cut with her teeth and her toes.
As these holiday iron basket crescents burn, while the fife and drums play on a colonial street, visitors are invited to think about a simpler time and the roots of America's enduring Christmas traditions. Deborah Block, VOA News, Williamsburg.
It's time for a health segment, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu, who tells us how government-led action can protect communities from tobacco and save lives. Hello, Lino.
Hello, Esther. A new report by the World Health Organization reveals a powerful shift in the global tobacco epidemic. During the past 2 decades, overall global tobacco use has fallen by approximately 60 million people, according to the third edition of the WHO Global Report on Trends in Prevalence of Tobacco Use, 2000 to 2025. For the first time, the number of male tobacco users has stopped growing. By 2025, there is expected to be 5 million less men and 32 million fewer women tobacco users. The report also found that approximately 44 million children worldwide are using tobacco. This includes smoked tobacco, cigarettes, and smokeless tobacco. Each year, more than 8 million people die from tobacco use. Over 7 million of those deaths are from direct tobacco use, and about 1.2 million are from secondhand smoke. Progress in meeting the global target set by governments to cut tobacco use by 30% by 2025 remains off track.
But of course, we cannot be complacent. We need to step up and do more in governance, and that is that we need to still continue stopping advertising for tobacco smoke, which we don't have in all countries yet. We still need to raise taxes, increase the tax volume, and of course we should not smoke in public places, for instance. So these are things that governments need to step up in order to really reach the goal.
According to the WHO report, only 32 countries are currently on track to reach the 30% reduction target, most of them in the Americas. Tobacco use is the slowest in the Eastern Mediterranean region and the African region. Now to Kenya's remote island communities near its border with Somalia. The threat from Al-Shabaab terrorists has scared away most medical personnel there, but one group of volunteers, the safari doctors, is braving the danger to provide much-needed regular health care to the area's most vulnerable residents. Ruud Elmendorp has more from Lamu County, Kenya.
Once a month, the safari doctors sail from island to island in Kenya's Lamu County to bring health care to remote areas near the Somalia border. The people here have always had less access to medicine than in urban areas. But when Al-Shabaab terrorists threatened the region starting in 2011, the few clinics here there were abandoned. Lamu-born Umra Omar left her career in the US in 2015 to help the women and children left behind.
And for me, because it was home, because I was a new mother myself, and like seeing other mothers and seeing the need that was there, it just became a natural thing for safari doctors to take on from there.
The safari doctors cover 12 islands, bringing health care to a population of 20,000 people.
Normally when my child is sick, I would have to go far to Pate Island. So getting medicine here is better.
While Al-Shabaab militants are a threat, locals say the remoteness of the islands also provides some protection.
The problems come when on the roads. Once you reach the roads, it's bad. There we have to be scared, but not here.
Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for attacks in Lamu County in 2014 that left nearly 100 people dead and dealt a blow to Kenya's coastal tourism. Founded just a year later, the safari doctors say they are aware of the risk, but have yet to face any intimidation.
I started in 2017, and ever since I have come for all the clinics, and there has never been any threat whatsoever.
A bigger threat to locals than terrorism is the lack of sanitation and clean water, say nurses.
During the rainy season, all the dirt is accumulated and put into the jambias, and people collect the same water for drinking.
The safari doctors hopes to merge with the local government by 2022 to formalize its role as the mothership for bringing healthcare services to Kenya's remote islands. Ruud Amendorp for VOA News, Lamu County, Kenya.
And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter at Linor Moudou. Esther?
Thank you, Lino. Be sure to watch Lino Moudou's health reports every Tuesday on Africa 54. Now, residents in the town of Rovaniemi, Finland, bid farewell to Santa Claus as the legendary symbol of goodwill began his annual journey around the world to deliver Christmas gifts to expectant children all over the globe. Before departing his official residence inside the Arctic Circle Monday, the fictional Santa offered some holiday wishes to that crowd gathered to send him off.
I hope you have a nice and relaxing Christmas with friends and family. Also remember to look around and to be a friend to the lonely.
According to folklore, the first leg of Santa's journey takes him to the North Pole to stock up his sleigh with gifts for lucky children all over the world. He will then collect the rest of the reindeer as he heads off on his Christmas Eve expedition to bring joy to the world. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening.